So next up, let's go ahead and just duplicate this markup, which is all I did here. I did use slightly different words, slightly different Bacum ipsum between these paragraphs. So I'll just copy these two over into the HTML, but again, that's not the focus here. So what we want, again, make sure, let's just type this from scratch. So it's div class equals post. And some of you might be wondering why I even bothered putting a div with class equals post around everything. This would work fine without that. It's really just about grouping things together. Rather than having one giant mess where one blog post bleeds into another, I like to have things contained a little bit so that I know this is one post and it ends right here. So it's more just about, in my opinion, keeping the code a little bit clean. So then we wanted to have a div called date, or class equals date, and that date is December 11, 2015. Save that. Then we had an h2, and that h2, this is another article, which is another terrible article. Don't recommend that you read it. It's just about bacon. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this quote again, which is a paragraph, class equals quote, paste that in, and then we have two more paragraphs here, one, and finally the last bit of markup that we need, the second paragraph. There we go. So let's see how this looks. So one thing I'm noticing is that we have a little less spacing between the posts here. So this one just runs into this the date, December 11th. We definitely want a little spacing there, as we can see on the left. So part of that could be because of the HR that we're missing. Although I think what we'll need to do is just add in some margin between the blog posts. So let's start by getting this HR in. So we haven't actually seen the HR element really in practice. It's a very simple one to use. Just looks like this. It's actually self-closing. Doesn't take anything, it doesn't have any closing tag or any inner content, just HR, horizontal rule. And if we refresh, what you'll see is that it gives us this line going across. And that ordinarily is fine. Most people, though, like to style these a little bit. So this one is really faint. I don't know if you can tell, but it's basically getting a little thicker and then trailing off on the edges. And there are some great resources and things online that you can use to style an HR. And the reason I added this in here is that I wanted to force you to look something up and to try to find some styles that you didn't write yourself. So I'm going to show you exactly what I would do to find some HR styles. I would just Google HR style and see what we get. And you can see I've actually clicked on two of them before. So we've got simple styles for HRs. And you can see there's a few options here. So I think this is the one that I went with right here. But let's just try one like this. Click on code. And all we have to do is copy these. These are two styles. And copy this down. And I don't want you to think that you need to understand every line here, because this is some stuff that is pretty advanced and kind of hacky. As you can see, this person says not really supposed to work, but does. The only thing that we want to do is make sure that these are going to be selecting our HR. And so what this is doing is selecting an HR with class of style 7, which we don't have. So let's just select HR. And let's just see what this looks like. Refresh the page. Okay, so there we go. So I personally don't care for that one. I'm going to use this one here that kind of trails off. Feel free to do whatever you'd like and play around with it. But again, the point was that I wanted you to try and find something external that you didn't write. And I want to show you that it's totally fine to do that. So I'm just copying this in. I didn't write this. I'm going to get rid of these styles here and put this in. So all they're doing is it looks like they're setting a border on the HR, so no border, height, which is just 1 pixel, and then this background image, which is a gradient. And so that's how they get that gradient effect. So if we refresh now, there you go. We have this nice gradient effect here. And if we wanted to, I actually prefer this one, so I'm just going to go ahead and keep this one over this. I might change the color a little bit so that it's a lighter gray, but let's just keep that for now. But we still have this problem, which is our next blog post is starting too soon, and we need to add some space there. So all that we need to do is add a little bit of a margin. So this is actually a nice coincidence that we have this blog post wrapper around every post, because we can just add a margin to the bottom of each post. So that will add space here. So all we need to do is select, let me just show you the class post. That's one post. So then we're just going here, select dot post, margin, and let's do 20 pixels. And not just margin, let's just do it on the bottom. So only margin bottom, refresh, and that's looking pretty close. So the last little issue here is that we have a little bit more space over here than we do here, and that's because this HR that we added is actually outside of the post class. So it's not being affected by that margin that we added in. So if we did that, we just move the HR, where is that? Here we go, to the bottom of the post, and we refresh. You can see we get the spacing that we wanted. Okay, so if we wanted to experiment and get this exact one, we would just go back to that HR styles and try some of the other ones. But what I really want to show again is that we can incorporate other styles in, and we don't really have to know exactly how they work, although it's a good idea to be curious and to try and figure it out. So hopefully you enjoyed making this project. It's a nice, simple, minimal blog. And for now, obviously it doesn't actually function as a blog. There are no comments. We can't add in a new post with any sort of interface. We have to actually edit the HTML ourselves. But when we get to JavaScript, and in particular when we get to the back end, and we have a database, and we have a server going, and a framework called Express, we're actually going to take this blog and turn it into a real blog where we can add a post using a form, we can comment, and we can do some other things like vote. So that's going to be really exciting. We'll use this CSS. It's relatively nice looking for relatively few lines. Okay, I'll see you when we cover JavaScript.